Hi guys, John here again from Organic Nation in Hamilton, back with another episode of what causes chronic illness and how to finally heal. Today we're doing the subject of arthritis, osteoarthritis, psoriatic arthritis, gout, aches and pains, what causes it and how we can heal from it. So to get started, we're going to look at the cause of arthritis and many other of these related, and people don't, they take these as a diagnosis. Oh, I've just been diagnosed with gout, or my mate says I've got gout because it felt the same as his, so on and so forth. We take these and we don't realize that these are actually all related. Osteoarthritis, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, psoriatic arthritis, joint pain, aches and pains. These are all related. They have one cause, and the cause is a virus. The virus's name is Epstein-Barr virus. It's the most common human herpes virus in the world. Everybody has it. Now, if you Google it, it'll tell you that 95% of the world's population has it, but in actual fact, everybody does. And the only reason the other 5% of the world's population don't test positive for it is because they may not have a high enough viral load to trigger the test. And so these tests can only go so far as to tell us what is in our bloodstream. And of course they're looking for antigens, antibodies that tell us that we've had a viral infection in the past, because those stay with us, they stay in the bloodstream. Now the reason they stay in the bloodstream is because that virus is still there. It's not like you had the virus and then it's gone. It's not like COVID where we had the virus and it's gone. It's not like SARS, MERS and all these different flus and viruses that we have. These all come and go, but with these viruses, these human herpes viruses, HHVs, they stay in the body for life. You get them when you're born. You contract them as you go through life. You drink from someone's drink bottle when you're a child, or you drink from someone's cup that wasn't quite cleaned properly and it had a bit of their saliva or residue on it. You were in a relationship with someone. You kissed someone. In fact, Epstein-Barr virus is called and commonly known as the kissing disease, and it's not just through that, it's sexually transmitted. It's through any kind of body fluid or contact that we have. And these viruses, they come into the body, they get set up in the body, and then they become active in the body, and they never stop being active. They're called dormant, but in actual fact they never stop being active. They're just sitting there feeding away, doing their jobs, and their job is to clean our cells. And so they're actually a beneficial virus. But the one part of this virus that is non-beneficial is that after they're fed, because they're a toxin feeder, they excrete that toxicity, their waste, into the bloodstream. Now, the bloodstream takes that back to the liver, and the liver used to be, in the old days, for thousands and thousands of years, in a healthy condition in which the liver could perform its task of packaging up the waste that came from the blood from these viruses, and package those up and send them out into the gallbladder and then into the stomach and then out through the digestive tract, with food being the medium by which they're bound up and taken out of the body. And so what happens is that when these viruses get going, if they get lots of food, such as, and I'll give you some examples of the types of foods that viruses, human herpes viruses, like to feed on. Mercury is number one, aside from actual foods, which we'll talk about those as well. But when it comes to toxins and heavy metals, mercury is number one. Since DDT was introduced into the world, DDT is the second favorite for the virus, And it was actually the cause of the virus mutating in the first place into the form that it is today, and it's continually and still mutating as it feeds on bacteria, on viral waste and bacterial waste and old medication and heavy metals and toxins and certain foods that we consume today as well, and all these other chemicals and things that we know that are coming into our environment. And so we have environmental toxicity such as mercury, copper, aluminium, and what we call these is industrialized metals. So these are not metals that are found in plants or in supplements, the critical elements that are in plants and food. These are metals that have been amalgamated or created into alloys by human activity on Earth, right? So all of the industrialized metals that we have, the coppers we have today are not the same as the copper we used to have. The aluminiums and the different forms of metals that we have today are not the same as they were in the days gone by. They're becoming increasingly complex and mixed into these alloys, which then become toxic to the body because, of course, our bodies are used to only absorbing these things in the form of plant-based, what the plants have pulled up out of the soil and out of the nutrients and things like that into, and then we consume them and we get those in that form. Now these are harmless forms, unless of course our plants and things are sprayed with toxic heavy metals and things, which they often are. Now in the old days, way back in the late 1800s, one of the favorite pesticides that was sprayed on food and sprayed everywhere throughout Western civilization was mercury. Copper came in later as a spray, but mercury was used, worldwide as a spray, as a pesticide. And that had a huge detrimental effect. It was one of the reasons for the initiation of the mutation of Epstein-Barr virus and the various other human herpes viruses that we have and contain in our bodies. Now, after that came in the introduction of, in the early 1900s, came in the introduction of DDT and other types of chemicals made by the industrial complex for war. And then once war was over in World War I and World War II, then they got repurposed back into agriculture and all these other areas, because these big industrial complexes that had been fueled by the war now had to repurpose that back into everyday life. Otherwise, and products, because those companies would have died if, there was no war at that time, of course, and so there was no more need for them. So they repurposed their toxic chemicals and the things that they used in the war, and they repurposed those back into everyday life that we have today, such as glyphosates, paraquat, and all these other types of chemicals that were used, Agent Origin, all these sorts of things were all repurposed back into to use in our foods, on our production lines, and in our general daily lives, including all your rodenticides, your pesticides, your herbicides, and any other form of like slug slam and cockroach baits and fly sprays and all these things. All these companies basically focus their efforts on killing stuff, and at the same time, as you know, they're killing us as well. So now that we know what causes these arthritis, aches and pains, let's have a look at what happens when these viruses actually, like Epstein-Barr, begin to feed on these toxic heavy metals. So viruses, if you just look at them in the way that we saw, for example, COVID, right? So you see a little virus there, and it sits in the nucleus of our cells, and it sits there feeding on toxicity that comes into our bodies. And what happens is when the virus is sitting there feeding, its way of digesting things like us is to methylate, and so it creates a methylated form of the heavy metals that it's feeding on, and the old medication it's feeding on, or the adrenaline, or whatever it's feeding on, and it methylates that into a form that's easy for the liver to pick up when it's going back out into the bloodstream. So it poops into the bloodstream, into the capillaries and your veins and arteries. That sends that back to the heart, then back to the liver, and the liver picks that up, packages it all up, and then stores it for a convenient time of which when it does its cleansing. But in the meantime, if you've got a sick liver or a sluggish liver, which we often talk about on these shows, these programs, is that our livers can become hardened or get cirrhosis or scar tissue, and they can become tacky, like they're not a beautiful, soft and flexible organ anymore. They have become sticky like blue tack, and they're not effective at functioning as a cleansing mechanism, so a filter for our blood. And what happens is if our blood doesn't constantly get cleansed and filtered, what happens is the blood then begins to get toxic, as we call it, toxic blood. Now, if we've got thick, sticky, dehydrated and toxic blood through our dietary intake, coffee, and various other things that we're consuming that make us, acidic, toxic, sticky, thick blood, such as fat and proteins, oils, high protein food, lots of grains and all these other things that create that environment for our blood, having lots of salt and vinegars and fermented foods, all these sorts of things. These create a toxic blood, sticky, thick, dehydrated blood that's no longer getting cleaned properly by the liver. This blood then has to go to the whole entire body, and ultimately blood is there to nourish our organs, our joints, our ligaments, our muscles, and replenish them, take waste away from them, and bring in fresh supplies so that our bodies can continue functioning each day. Now, if you can imagine, it's like doing a big workout at the gym, and you went hard out, and you ripped a bunch of muscles, and you did all these things, and you got lactic acid build up in the muscles, and there's a lot of waste and byproduct created, and this is the reason you wake up feeling stiff and sore the next day. Well, in the same way, our joints, when the blood takes this toxicity to the joints and begins feeding the joints and trying to clean up the joints and things like this, those neurotoxins that are in the blood and dermatoxins that are in the blood, they float around in these joints and they create inflammation. They damage the nerve endings in the joints. Now, the nerve endings in the joints begin to get sore and raw over time. This doesn't come along just overnight. You can get a gout kind of flare up overnight, and you hadn't had it before. This sort of thing can happen aggressively, but in most cases these creep up on us. They get achy joints and pain and swelling and things just coming up over time. So with this constant and gradual damage of the nerve endings in the joints, we get swelling. And the body's natural response is to come in and look for an invader, and it doesn't know what that invader is because it's a foreign toxicity in the joints. It's not like it's coming in to attack like a virus or a bacteria. It's actually dealing with something that's invisible to them. All your T cells, B cells, killer cells, white blood cells, and all these other things that would normally, your lymphocytes and your basophils and your neutrophils and all these soldiers that are in your blood to clean up and to kill bacteria and pathogens and things like that. They're going in and they're not being able to find what's the cause of the inflammation or the damage to the nerves, because Of course, there's no invader there. It's just toxicity. Now, of course, there are cases when viruses will go to a site, or bacteria will go to a site and cause this inflammation, and then our immune systems will come in and clean that up. But in this case, because our blood is toxic, and our fortification, or our army, our soldiers in our blood that are coming to the site aren't finding something to kill, there's a bit of confusion goes on there, and what comes is the body's natural autoimmune response is to bring swelling to that site. Now, when swelling happens, the pressure on the nerve endings from the swelling creates more pain. And then, of course, you know what that feels like. That's the arthritis, the gout, and things like that you are suffering from. And then I'll get people say to me, well, I don't suffer from, osteoarthritis. I'm from rheumatoid arthritis, or vice versa. And they say, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that one type of inflammation is a swelling and a joint inflammation from nerve ending damage, and the other, like osteo, is where you'll get calcifications building up in the joints. This is what causes deformation of the joints, where your fingers and hands and things and your feet are no longer straight, or your joints in your hip and your elbows and so forth are no longer operating in the way that they'd operate, and they're clunky and they're grindy, joint on joint, and the cartilage is getting worn away. Now, what causes this is there's a virus actually in the joint itself, goes to those joint areas, and then our bodies will take calcium from our bones and our teeth and from our marrow and all the rest of it. We'll take that calcium, which is controlled by the parathyroid at the back of the thyroid, and it will build a calcification or a nodule around the area where the virus is. And what this is to do is actually the body's defense creating a callus or a casing around the virus to try and contain the virus from spreading. This is the body's natural response. And so people say, oh, this is different, and this is... No, it's exactly the same thing. It's just the body has chosen to attack a virus as opposed to toxicity that's, so rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis have these little nuances that science and doctors try to say is, this is a different diagnosis from this. No, they're all the same. The body is just dealing with them in a different way because a virus is present or it's not present. Doesn't mean that they're not present in the body, they're just not present at the site of the inflammation and the pain. And so there's no need for the body to use calcium to build up that protection layer around that. Now, let's shoot to the future and say, well, if you were to heal from your arthritis and you were to deal with the virus in a particular way that would help you to heal, over time, over about a 5 to 10 year period, that calcification that's built up in your joints, that have made the joints, large, almost like you've broken a bone, and it's repaired itself. It's got all this excess calcium in that area. Those will reabsorb back into the bloodstream and be taken back into the body to be used again as calcium for teeth and bones and remineralization of any cartilage in areas that you need rebuilding. And so the body will reuse that, and all of those large, lumpy, calcified areas of your body will actually disappear over time. That's an amazing thing that happens when a bone begins to heal. Now, your bones can heal, and the inflammation and the swelling in your joints can also go down. And the way that we do that, and this is looking at we've established that viruses are the cause. We understand now that they feed on toxicity. They excrete that toxicity in the form of a methylated form of toxins that now floats around in the bloodstream and goes to the joints and to the rest of the body, inflaming and causing nerve pain. Okay? And then we've just learned also that there's a calcification stage that can set up depending on the type of virus and when the virus is actually present at the site of the damage, as opposed to just staying in the liver or the spleen or the kidneys or various other areas where the virus can sit. and then just excreting its toxins into the bloodstream. So these are the two different definitions of how a virus can operate in terms of osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, aches, pains, gout, inflammation, swelling of the joints, these sorts of things. Now these viruses can be particularly aggressive, or they can be low grade and cause maybe just the odd little aching pain. Ouch! Oh, my toe kind of tweaked at that time. The pain went away, never happened again for a few months. Or it can be where you sit down to a breakfast of eggs, and maybe that night you had a wine and a steak, and you feed the virus on a bunch of the things that it likes, and the next day you wake up in agony and you can't walk and you have to take the day off work or whatever it is. Okay, so these are the differing degrees to which these things can happen. Now, I have had psoriatic arthritis for many, many years, and psoriatic arthritis is different in only one area, and that is that you can also have a dermatoxin that comes in with the neurotoxin. And this dermatoxin can create the psoriasis, and the neurotoxin creates the joint pain. And so this is excruciatingly painful, just like any other arthritis, but they are one and the same thing. They are caused by the exact same thing. And so what we need to do is to understand there's a virus at work, the liver is suffering, not able to clean up the blood. The blood is toxic. It's taking neurotoxins and dermatoxins to the skin and to the bones and to the sinews and to all of the joint areas. And then, of course, this takes time. And also, now, what do we do to heal? Before I go into that, I'll just talk about the foods that we can have, because we talked about toxins and heavy metals and environmental issues. Now we're going to just talk about foods that will increase your propensity to have issues. Now, if you are having fermented foods, vinegars, tamaris, sauerkrauts, kombucha, any other form of fermented foods in terms of yogurts, cheese, sourdoughs, any of those sorts of things, these will increase your propensity for gout, arthritis, osteoarthritis, and all these other things. If you are feeding on fish, you will be getting high amounts of mercury. If you are taking fish oil tablets, mercury, even mercury extracted ones that say they have no mercury in them, this is not true. They have a homeopathic particleized form of mercury, which the virus actually loves more so, and so this is detrimental as well. And we recommend, as opposed to having fish oil, a vegan EPA DHA made from, like your. Yeah, that's what you're after?
Yes.
Sweet. Good spotting. Made from an algal bacteria, algal bloom sort of derivative of oil. So the EPA DHA, which our bodies don't produce ourselves. So going on with the foods, if you are feeding on eggs, and you're having eggs and you're baking your other food that you're consuming, or if you're just eating them as eggs. Not that eggs are bad, but that they have been the favourite food for viruses for a couple of hundred years, since science has been using eggs to keep bacteria and viruses alive in labs. And if you've heard my other talks, you'll understand a little bit more about that. We often get lazy, and we like eggs, as particularly bachelors and things like that, we like eggs as a quick fix, a quick feed up. It makes us full, makes us feel satiated, makes us feel comfortable. When we consume these eggs, we don't realize the fallout that happens the weeks and months and days after having those eggs. And so often eggs will be the unannounced invader in your body that is causing a lot of these issues. Now, of course, people know who have gout and arthritis and things that having alcohol is bad for them, and it is for the same reason that all fermented foods are bad for them, for their gout and arthritis as well. because they are all fermented. They are all either alcohol or nearly alcohol. They're acidic, so they acidify the bloodstream. They create a great environment for bacteria and viruses. And then, of course, after eggs is dairy. That's cheese, yogurt, any other form of dairy. Even plant-based yogurts, we get one, they're fermented, right? So you've got the worst of both worlds. And then, of course, there's gluten. Gluten is a Latin name for protein, sticky protein, and it is the protein that the bacteria and viruses love to feed on. And when it comes to dairy, it's the lactose and the protein and the fats in the dairy. And of course the fact that most of those dairy products are fermented as well. And then corn and soy. And so if you begin to take these things out of your diet and bring in more fruit, more vegetables, more of your so-called nightshades that are supposedly harming you. The reason they tell you not to have the nightshades is because they're the ones that heal you. They have a lot of the critical healing compounds in them that actually help to take away your gout and your arthritis and your psoriasis, and this is why we're told not to have them. By the way, nightshades aren't something to be afraid of. It just means that they flower in the moonlight. Okay, it's that simple. They do have a nightshade deadly toxin in them. It's not deadly, but it's a toxin in them while they're not ripe. But as soon as the fruit or the potato or whatever is ripe, they are they're good to go. They don't have that nightshade toxin in them. The leaf, the stem, the roots do still have the nightshade toxin in them, but the fruit itself does not. So those are some of the things that you can bring into your life. More pumpkin, more kumara, potato, more root vegetables, more leafy greens, more salads, more fruit. Have fruit with your salads as well. Bring in more herbs, more spices, and more berries. Of course, berries are hugely high in antioxidants and things that will support the liver and help to fight off viral load and bring the viral load down. The other thing for taking these foods is so that you stay hydrated and your system begins to cleanse, because your liver will not cleanse and your blood will not become clean, which is of paramount importance that you will understand by now, that you've got to get that blood clean in order to supply the joints with good clean blood and with the necessary antibodies for the bacteria and viruses to be taken under control by your immune system. So bring in the fruit, the vegetables, the herbs, the spices, the berries, and cut down on the meat and the fat and the proteins and the oils, and cut out the eggs, dairy, gluten, corn and soy altogether. Bring in lemon water and honey in the morning. Bring in your celery juice in the morning. Bring in your detox smoothie in the morning, which if you, in the link down below, we'll have a bunch of questions there. How do I make my detox smoothie? How can I heal from arthritis and gout and all these sorts of things? You'll see the little questions down there. It's all free information. It'll redirect you to our website where you can see all the information. You download it, you can print it out, you can read it, and you can bring yourself up to speed with these things. We'll also have a specific write-up on arthritis and how to deal with it. And then, of course, we'll have some references to some books and things that you can read if you want to delve in a little bit deeper as well. But if you're just wanting a daily plan, we have a 2-pager that we can supply as well, which gives the detox smoothie, what to not take in your food and what to avoid, what to have as well. And it gives you a little bit of a daily protocol on what you can do. So how do we heal? First of all, we have to clean up our bloodstream. How do we do that? We have to support our livers by bringing in critical cleansing foods and juices and drink and teas that are able to support the liver, support our immune system, bring that up, cleanse our blood so that we're getting fresh, clean blood to those joints. And then, of course, over time, through the detox smoothie, bringing out those heavy metals and toxins that have harbored in our livers and in our bloodstream and in our skin and all the different cells in our bodies, and reduce the amount of food that our viruses get to feed on, and bring their numbers back under control so that they're not pooping all of their waste into our bloodstream, so that we aren't able to heal. Now, we also recommend that if someone wants to speed up their recovery, they can do some things that will improve their immunity and help with their body dealing with the overgrowth of bacteria and viruses. And I say bacteria and viruses because most people who have gout and these sorts of things, they'll also have the bacterial overgrowth, such as streptococcus, in their bodies as well. And I'm just going to turn around here and show you some of the critical healing elements. Magnesium glycinate, super important. L-lysine, now this is for your joints and things like this, to help them to heal, and also has an effect on viral load in the body. This is L-lysine, this is an antiviral, and this is super powerful. You know, if I can feel viral attack coming on, I'll smash down 6 of those, boom. Something like a cold sores and things like that will be gone in no time. Vitamin C helps to attack the carcasses of the viruses and debilitate them and reduce their ability to mutate and to methylate and to do all the things that they would normally do that would cause you harm. Inflammation, curcumin, and then MSM. I often allude to those two there, the curcumin, which is your curcuminoids, which are anti-inflammatories, and so is your MSM, which is a methylated form of sulfur. My favorite, zinc. We've got more zinc coming in, and then B12, and we also have the zinc up here in this one here, which is a plant-based zinc from Global Healing, and that's just come back in the door. It's a very, very nice product. We've got B12. This is a must for anybody who has gout, arthritis, osteoarthritis, psoriatic arthritis, or any of those other types of things. So there's a few things that you can find on our website. They are particularly helpful when it comes to healing from these sorts of ailments. And, you know, look, I just encourage you that you can heal from these things. You can dramatically reduce your pain and inflammation, literally over weeks and months. And, you know, you can be completely free from arthritis and any of these other issues. And by the way, you'll find that these protocols will help with not just that, but, you know, diabetes, you know, any other heart and health condition. You know, cholesterol will come down, your general energy will improve. You might notice a drop in energy for the first couple of weeks while your body's adjusting to the different calories and things like that, and the reduction in fat and protein. But ultimately, if you keep that up and if you keep moving forward in that, you'll have a fantastic abundance of energy come to you. Cut out your coffees, your milk, and all these other things, chocolate, matcha, tea, kombucha. Cut those all out. They're killing you, you know. People don't realize that whilst there might be lots of literature out there saying that these things are good for you, in actual fact, they are not. They're robbing you. They're acidifying your bloodstream. They're feeding the virus, and they're creating an oversupply of adrenaline into your bloodstream, which becomes a bacterial and viral feeder in its own right. And so we just try and get people onto the good stuff. And all the products that I showed you there are Vimeggy. They are Vimeggy, and that brand is a super clean product that we've sourced from the States, and we're the New Zealand supplier for that. And we love the product. It's super effective. When people get onto it, they really begin to heal. So that'll speed up your healing. You can do it all by food if you want, though. You don't have to have the supplements. I do recommend the zinc, magnesium, and B12, though, as a minimum. But you could do the rest on food, and you can bring in those fruits, those veg, those herbs, those spices, those berries. If you've got a good digestive system, which most people who have those issues don't, but you can have some lentils, you can have your beans and things like that. but just keep those on the low until your gut heals. And your gut will heal, by the way, as well. All your acid reflux, those sorts of things. If you get onto this, those will heal as well. Great chatting with you guys today. Look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll have another exciting topic. I haven't decided what that's going to be just yet, but look, let's just see what people come in, the problems, the ailments that they have, and we'll do a bit more homework on all of that sort of thing, and then deliver that to you next Saturday. But it's Organic Nation. We've got the website there, organicnation.co.nz. We have the Facebook page, which is Organic Nation NZ, and then we also have our physical location, 245 Commerce Street in Frankton, Hamilton, and we ship out all over New Zealand. We have over 3,000 products available online, and more getting added to that all the time. So feel free to get on the website. We'll have links down below where you can click on it. Where can I find more information on this? What can I take to heal, and so on and so forth. And we'll put those all there as well. We have links to supplements, what they do in the body, how they operate, how they work in the body. Lots of different resources that you can use and look at to get yourself underway. And you can also ask me personally, ask me questions. Jump on and say, I've got this and this and this and this. What can I do? How can I heal? Da 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 da. And we'll, you'll get some automatic answers back. But as soon as I get those questions, I'll answer those for you as well in a personal way. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. If you want to contact us at the shop, it's 07 848 1155, and our email address is info@organicnation.co.nz. I look forward to hearing from you, and if you like this video, please like, share, and show your friends, anyone who you know who has these problems and may want to heal from them. Put them in touch with us. We can help them, and you supporting us helps us to give this free information each week, and supports us in our endeavours to keep people healthy in the right way, without needing doctors' prescriptions, medications, drugs, and things like this. So I'm looking forward to next week's one, and thanks for joining me. We'll catch you all again then. Appreciate it.